2013. And in that moderator's report, in the middle of it, he inserted what he called a UUA board apology or official apology to victims of clergy sexual misconduct. So I'd say pretty inappropriate to sandwich an apology in the middle of your moderator's report anyway. But essentially what happened is the moderator's report, I mean the apology in it, was minimizing everything, only a small number of ministers, guilty, he said. Well, I don't know, 400 plus congregations affected by clergy sexual misconduct is hardly a small number. It's 40% of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and as I said, other people have estimated the number much higher, more like 66%. So he basically minimized everything, pretended it wasn't as bad as all that. But the worst thing he did is at one point he said, there were no incidents of abuse of children or elders in my investigations. So he completely and officially denied any sexual abuse of children or indeed elders in the Unitarian Universalist Church. This in spite of the fact that I had personally told Jim Key about the Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell case, where Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell lured teenage Tibetan refugees away from their families in India with promises of a better life in America and proceeded to make sex slaves out of them, proceeded to repeatedly rape one of them over a period measured in years before she finally was able to escape his clutches and bring criminal charges against him, which he was convicted of. So Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell was convicted of the forcible rape and indeed the unnatural rape of teenage Tibetan refugees, and he was sentenced to an 8-year jail term, which he served 4 years of. Now, if that's not sexual abuse of children by a Unitarian Universalist minister, I don't know what that is. And yet, Jim Key told thousands of Unitarian Universalists that he had investigated clergy sexual misconduct and had found no evidence of any sexual abuse of children. And be sure that the Reverend Mac Mitchell case is not the only case where children have been sexually abused by Unitarian Universalist ministers. There are some other cases I know about. One of them in the Indianapolis area, where a Indianapolis area minister was charged, tried, and again convicted of sexual abuse of children, sexual abuse of very young children, actually. Basically, he was a pedophile, according to my understanding of things. He wasn't going after teenagers, he was going after prepubescent children, from what I can gather from the reliable information that came into my hands. And then there's the case of ever so Christian Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Ronald Eugene Robinson. And I will say, however, that case came to light after Jim Key's apology, so he couldn't have included it. But I'm just bringing it up as another example of sexual abuse of children by a Unitarian Universalist minister, although in this case it was perhaps a step removed, in the sense that Reverend Ronald Eugene Robinson was convicted of child porn charges. He essentially entered chat rooms, I believe, of live sexual abuse of children. So even if he wasn't, doing the abuse himself, he was nonetheless enabling and helping abuse to happen by, I'm sure, paying some money to see children being abused in a chat room. So nonetheless, there are other cases. I'm not going to go into too much detail, partly because I can't, because it's been so well hidden by the Unitarian Universalist religious community, no doubt with similar legal bullying and similar, cover-up and denial of things. You know, for what I know about, it's probably just the tip of the iceberg. I'm not saying there's a huge epidemic of pedophilia in the Unitarian Universalist Church either, but I'm sure that I know only a fraction of what there actually is. And then there's the Sunday school teachers as well. The apology that Jim Key delivered was only about clergy, limited only to Unitarian Universalist ministers, and did not include Sunday school teachers. So
I'm so sorry you're so lonely. You must be very lonely. Bye.
You must be very willfully ignorant. You must be in deep, deep psychological denial about your religion's clergy abuse problem and your religion's proclivity to cover up and hide clergy abuse, madame. So yeah, I'm very lonely. Believe me, there's other things I could have done today that would have involved being more social, and then later today I will be doing some. What this woman may not understand is there's actually quite a number of people who actually support this protest. Even if they don't participate in it, they're aware of it and they support it. So it's just typical willful ignorance and psychological denial, which is precisely.
So I just quietly, but probably the one who knows everything. I just know that.
Well, there's quite a loud talker, that woman. Oh, look who's here. Carrie Ann Kurtz, if I'm not mistaken. Let's just see if this thing's still running. Oh, good. We got that recorded. I wasn't sure if that woman's silliness was recorded. I'm glad it is, because it's just typical of how Unitarian Universalists respond to my protest against clergy abuse and clergy abuse cover-up and so on. I mean, I am displaying a picket sign, which she had plenty of time to read, which says, one more time, Unitarian Universalists misuse blasphemy law to cover up and deny pedophilia and rape. This is a 100% truthful statement. This woman should be outraged that her religious community actually had the unmitigated gall to falsely accuse a person of violating Canada's blasphemy law in legal bullying intended to conceal pedophilia and rape from the public. But no, she's just more interested in trying to belittle me and to pretend, you know, there's nothing wrong. I see they're going into the church now. Got another car pulling up. So, and maybe another one. But we'll just let them see the signs here. So, looks like they're actually reading it. Looks like one of them is actually mouthing the words. So, somebody coming out to open the door.
Hey guys, do you want a hand, Jean? Do you want to walk up? I can escort you if you'd like.
All right, well, we'll just circulate a little more here. So to be 100% sure this thing is still running. I've noticed the overheating and the battery's low. So we're coming to the end of a half-hour segment. So we're just going to let it wrap up, hopefully. Then we will let the sensor cool down a bit and replace the expired battery.
I wasn't sure. So you have them? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay, see you in a second. All right. Welcome.
Well, we got another car pulling up here. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles pulled up in front of the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'm just going to, I think, wrap up this segment and start a fresh one now while the going's good. Well, no, maybe not. I got 3 minutes left of recording time. No, I think it's better to do it now, just in case there's some sort of interaction.